Elden Ring have a staggering 414 weapons, each unique, each powerful in its own right. But if we were to rank all of them based on raw damage alone, which one would stand out at the very top? The answer lies deep within the new Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, introducing the Anvil Hammer. It holds the title of the highest end buff damage among all weapons in Elden Ring. But here is the real question. How do you build around this monster to bring out its true potential? I've broken it down to see what makes this weapon so special, and trust me, it only gets better. By the end of this video, I'll showcase 3 unique builds, each with its own playstyle, and guide you step by step on how to obtain the necessary items. Let's dive in. We are diving deep into one of Elden Ring's most powerful weapons, the Anvil Hammer. This mighty weapon stands out not only for its raw strength, but also its unique damage split. 76% physical and 23% fire. Since almost 80% of its damage is physical, it is perfect for strength builds, with the fire damage serving as a nice bonus to top it all off. The Anvil Hammer demands 39 strength, 10 dexterity, 11 intelligence, and 20 faith. By the time you obtain this weapon, you should have these levels covered, so wielding it will not be an issue. While its scaling might seem overwhelming with 4 different stats, the majority of the Anvil's hammer damage comes from strength and faith. 42% of its total damage scales from faith and 35% from strength. Dexterity and intelligence only contribute 11% each. To get the most out of the Anvil Hammer, focus on leveling strength and faith. Pushing both to 60 will give you the best results. If you're looking to go even further, investing extra levels into strength up to 80 will give you an additional 5% boost. With such a small boost from dex and intelligence, it's not worth investing in those stats beyond the minimum requirement. Let's talk about the weapon's Ash of War, Smithing Art Spears. This 2-part skill delivers 2 hits back to back. The first hit deals 26% of the total damage, while the second, with a larger AoE, delivers the remaining 74%. However, during my testing, just like when I reviewed Malekith's Black Blade, Shard of Alexander only boosts this skill by a meager 4%. Unlike the Black Blade, however, this gap persists no matter how much you upgrade the hammer or invest into your stats. While the Ash of War damage is solid, it's not the best path when maximizing this weapon's potential. The real power of the Anvil Hammer lies in its normal attacks. Two-handing the hammer increases your damage by 35%. Heavy attacks boost it by 50%, and charging those heavies add an extra 25%. That brings you to nearly the same damage as the Ash of War, with a similar casting time. But here's the kicker. There's an even better option: dual wielding. Dual wielding the Anvil Hammer deals about 17% less damage than the Ash of War, but it's faster to execute. This is key because the quicker you attack, the more stance damage you can inflict. With dual wielding jump attacks, you will not only dish out serious damage, but also break enemy poise more often, leading to devastating critical hits. For example, you can break mid-rest stance with just 2 hits, and Mesmer stance in 3, giving you the chance to deal massive damage and sometimes even skip boss phases entirely, like in R'Lana's. Here's the catch. How do you get 2 Anvil Hammers? If you are in New Game Plus, this isn't an issue. You can simply get a second one. Another option, you could have a friend drop one for you. But if neither of these options work for you, here's an alternative. How about the second highest damaging weapon in the game, the Staff of the Avatar? The Staff of the Avatar fits perfectly with this build. Like the Anvil Hammer, it scales with strength and faith, allowing you to deal a mix of physical and holy damage. Now that we have covered the basics, let's break down the 3 different builds you can optimize around the Anvil Hammer. The 2-hand bonk build. This build is all about raw power. By focusing on heavy attacks, you'll deliver massive damage with high poise and defense, making it ideal for those who enjoy overwhelming enemies with brute force but don't want to dual wield or jump attack. Which brings us to the second build, the dual wield jump build. This build is all about poise-breaking. By dual-wielding and focusing on jump attacks, you can break enemy stances more often, leading to critical hits and faster takedowns. It is perfect for an aggressive playstyle that punishes enemies. The third and final build is the high damage build. If maximizing damage is your goal, this build is for you. It's a high risk, high reward setup that lets you dish out incredible damage in a short time. Ideal for players who want to finish fights fast, this build excels at nuking bosses. First up is the two-hand bonk build. First, you need to get the Anvil Hammer and max it to +10. It can be obtained from the furnace at the end of the Ruined Forge lava intake. In your second hand, offhand, the Earthtree Seal to cast buffs. This is important for this build and the future ones since it weighs nothing and these builds are slightly heavy. The Earthtree Seal can be found in a cell near the Omen Killer in the Volcano Manor. For the armor, go for these different pieces. For the head, go for the Black Wolf Mask. For the chest, go for Blythe's armor. For the arms, go for the Scaled Gauntlets. And for the legs, go for the Scaled Greaves. I would have gone for the full set of Blythe's armor, but it does not reach 51 poise. For the talismans, go for the two-hand talisman, a no-brainer to increase damage by 15% when two-handing the hammer. It can be found inside the highest structure in Templetown ruins. The dagger talisman to increase critical damage by 17%. It can be found on a corpse in a room guarded by an imp statue in Volcano Manor. Blade of Mercy to increase damage by another 20% after a critical hit. It can be found in the Scorched Ruins in the starting area of the DLC. And finally, the Axe Talisman, which increases charge attack by 10%. It can be found in the Mistwood Ruins in Limgrave. For the physic, go for the Stone Barb Cracked Tear to increase stance damage by 30%. It is dropped by the avatar near the second minor Earthtree in Caelid, and the Flame Shrouding Cracked Tear to increase damage by 20% for 3 minutes. In this case, the damage increase is around 5%. I think it's worth using. You can use something else if you like, it's up to you. It is also dropped from the Putrid Avatar at the minor Earthtree in Caelid. For the spells, they will lead to better damage by big margins rather than just leveling the other stats. Go for Golden Vow to increase damage by 15% and damage negation by 10%. It can be found in the Corpse Stench Shack in Mount Gelmir. Pair it with Flame Grant Me Strength to increase damage by 20%. It can be found behind Fourth Gale. For the stats, Spec 250 Vigor, honestly decent, you don't need more than that. 10 Mind, you're not gonna use the spell at all, so just go with the lowest mind you can. 40 Endurance to be able to medium roll with the whole armor. 56 Strength for high damage. 10 Dex to meet the minimum requirement. 11 Intelligence to meet the minimum requirement as well. And 60 Faith for high damage. Next, we have the dual wielding jump build. Go for the Anvil Hammer as well and max it to +10. You need another Anvil Hammer if you can obtain it. If not, like we said, go for the Staff of the Avatar. The Staff of the Avatar drops from the Earthtree Avatar you encounter near the Great Waterfall Crest Site of Grace. Offhand, the Earthtree Seal to cast buffs. It is important since it weighs nothing. And we're dual wielding, remember. For the armor, go for the Black Wolf Mask, the Raptor's Black Feathers chest, the Scaled Gauntlets, and the Scaled Greaves. For the talismans, go for the Claw Talisman, which increases jump attack damage by 15%. It is located at Stormvale Castle on a corpse situated on a watchtower. The Dagger Talisman to increase critical damage by 17%. Blade of Mercy to increase damage by 20% after a critical. And the Great Jor's Arsenal to raise equip load by 19%. It is important since we're dual wielding and that is very heavy, so you're not gonna waste a lot of stats into endurance. It can be rewarded by completing the Great Jor's challenge in the Dragon Barrow. For the physic, go for the Stone Barb Cracked Tear to increase stance damage by 30% to break poise faster. It only lasts for 30 seconds, so when you use the flask, you just gotta go. Pair it with the Flame Shrouding Cracked Tear for that 5% damage increase for 3 minutes. It's not bad, just use it. If you want to use something else like the Alpine Heart Tear or anything else, honestly, it's up to you. For the spells, go for Golden Vow for that 15% damage increase and Flame Grant Me Strength for that 20% damage increase. For the stats, Spec 250 Vigor, 10 Mind, 40 Endurance, 56 to 80 Strength, 10 Dex, 11 Intelligence, and 60 Faith. Finally, let's explore the high damage build. Go for the Anvil Hammer and max it to +10, and the Staff of the Avatar and max it to +10 as well. Offhand, a seal to cast your buffs. It can be the Finger Seal or the Earthtree Seal. For the armor, go for the Rakshasa set for the head, arms, and legs, and the Raptor's Black Feathers chest piece for that 10% increase to jump attacks. For the talismans, go for the claw talisman to increase jump attack damage by 15%, the dagger talisman to increase critical damage by 17%, blade of mercy to increase damage by 20% after a critical, and the blessed dew talisman to restore 2 HP per second. It can be found west of the defined bridge site of grace, guarded by the golem in Lindale. This is important because in the physic, we will be using the blood-sucking crack tier, which gives us 20% increase to damage for 3 minutes, but ticks down our health. To obtain it, you need to defeat the furnace golem in the ruins of Ernte. Pair it with the crimson burst crystal tier to heal another 7 HP per second for 3 minutes. This will offset the blood-sucking tier and it will not be as stressful. For the spells, go for that golden vow for 15% and flame grant me strength for that 20%. For the stats, spec 2 50 vigor, 10 mind, 40 endurance, 80 strength, 10 dex, 11 intelligence, and 60 faith. And that wraps up our deep dive into the Anvil Hammer, Elden Ring's hardest hitting weapon. Whether you go for sheer power, stance breaking mastery, or full-on DPS nuking, this beast will carry you through any challenge. Experiment with the builds, find out what works best for you, and let me know your favorite in the comments. If you want to check out my last video on Malekith's Black Blade, a cool weapon that has the weirdest scaling I have ever seen, check it out.